MERIDIAN, a geopolitical thriller by Steve Rains, set in a world of shifting loyalties, digital shadows, and manufactured truths. Chapter 1, Arrival. Rain blurred the lights over Vilnius International as Elias Ward stepped off the plane. The air tasted of jet fuel and wet pine, and for a moment he imagined he could smell the border. That invisible line dividing NATO order from Russian chaos just 80 kilometers east. He adjusted the strap of his worn leather bag and scanned the crowd. Diplomats, tourists, soldiers. They all looked the same when they were tired. Somewhere out there, a Lithuanian from the State Security Department was supposed to meet him. Or so Langley claimed. His phone vibrated. "Welcome to Vilnius, Mr. Ward." Blue Audi A4, short-term parking, no name. Typical. The driver waiting by the car was a woman with dark hair and the posture of a soldier. She didn't bother with small talk. "Anya Petrescu," she said, extending a hand. "EU Cyber Defense Unit." Elias looked her over carefully. Romanian accent, good cover. Probably better aim. As they pulled into the grey streets, Anya spoke without looking at him. "There's been another breach. VSD traced the code signature to Kaliningrad, but the packet originated from a NATO relay in Warsaw." "Meaning someone inside our sides feeding them access keys," Elias said. "Meaning?" she replied. "Someone wants it to look that way." The Audi slowed at a checkpoint near the river. Ahead, the TV tower loomed like a steel sentinel against the mist. Vilnius at night was beautiful in the way old battlefields are, haunted and watchful. Elias leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. He always hated first meetings. You learned nothing except how well someone lied. He didn't see Thomas Kavaliauskas until they reached the safe house, a narrow apartment overlooking a defunct trolley line. Thomas opened the door, uniform half unbuttoned, eyes sharp as a blade. "Ward," he greeted coldly. "Lithuania appreciates the assistance. But from now on you take my orders." Elias smiled just enough to hide the tension. "Of course. I've spent my career following orders I don't trust." Anja exhaled through her nose, almost amused. "This'll be fun." Outside, a black drone hovered above the rooftops before vanishing into the fog. Chapter 2, Cathedral Square. Vilnius woke under a low ceiling of clouds. The sun hadn't quite broken through the mist, and the white spires of Cathedral Basilica smeared softly against the sky like a watercolor that never dried. Elias crossed the square just after 8, his breath faint in the chill. He'd shaved, changed into a neutral grey coat, and left his phone powered down in his pocket, just in case someone was tracing last night's text. The square was already alive. A group of schoolchildren tossed bread to pigeons near Gediminas Tower. 2 nuns hurried across the plaza, habit hems flapping in the wind. A man in a dark parka leaned against a lamppost, speaking into an earpiece. Elias clocked them all, cataloguing possibilities, habit more than paranoia. He took a seat on a bench facing the cathedral steps. A small plaque on the ground marked Lithuania's 0 kilometer, the point from which all distances are measured. Appropriate, he thought. Every operation starts from 0, and every betrayal crosses it on the way back. At 8, 3 Ampere's blonde woman approached from the north side of the square. Business suit, no umbrella, moving with purpose. She stopped beside him and spoke without turning her head. "You're early," she said. "Old habit," Elias replied. "You're new." "I'm nobody," she said, handing him a folded tourist map. "But you're in danger of becoming interesting." He opened the map. A red dot circled near Antakalnis Cemetery, where foreign soldiers were buried. Beneath it, handwritten in neat Cyrillic, "He's not VSD." Elias looked up, but the woman was already walking away, vanishing into the stream of morning traffic. Across the square, Anya stood beside the cathedral entrance, pretending to take photos. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, and Elias knew she'd seen everything. He crumpled the map into his pocket, forced a casual smile, and started walking toward her, the clock tower bell tolling once behind him. But before he reached her, a police siren cut through the air, and a convoy of black vehicles turned sharply into the square. The lead car shut off its lights but not its engine. Someone was making contact. The question was, whose side were they on? Anja's view. Anja Petrescu had a clear line of sight from the cathedral steps, just enough elevation to watch Elias Ward without drawing attention. The Nikon camera around her neck wasn't for photography, not really. Its battery compartment concealed a directional mic tuned to pick up anything within 15 meters. She adjusted the zoom, focusing on the bench near the 0-kilometer marker. Ward was right on schedule, punctual or too punctual. That made her uneasy. Men who kept time perfectly either had nothing to hide or hid everything. "Target visual confirmed," she murmured in Romanian-accented English. A thin voice crackled through her earpiece. "Maintain position. New party inbound, female courier. No interference." Anja frowned, pretending to snap a wide shot of the square. The blonde woman approached Ward, spoke briefly, and passed the folded map. "Smooth. Too smooth." "Copy that," she said, lowering the lens. "She's already gone." Her handler didn't reply. For a moment, Anya let herself study Ward's posture, the way his right shoulder dipped slightly, the faint scar along his jaw. CIA fieldwork written all over him. But his eyes, they weren't scanning like an American. They were listening. Her phone vibrated silently in her coat pocket. Unknown number. A single text. "He knows about you. Leave now." She turned slowly toward the cafe terrace behind her, where Thomas Kavaliauskas sat with a cup of coffee and a folded newspaper. He wasn't supposed to be there. As their eyes met, he raised the paper higher, blocking his face, and spoke into his sleeve microphone. That's when the convoy pulled into the square. Anja dropped the camera strap from her neck, bending down as if adjusting the lens. "What the hell is VSD doing?" she muttered. Her handler's voice returned, calm but firm. "That's not VSD, Petrescu. Get out." But before she could move, a man stepped out of the lead car. Civilian clothes, familiar gait. Her chest tightened. If he was here, the whole operation was compromised. She turned back to Ward, who was walking straight toward her, unaware that his extraction, or his execution, had just arrived. Chapter 3. The line breaks. The brakes of the lead vehicle hissed against the cobblestones. Doors opened in sequence, 1, 2, 3, and a gust of frigid air rolled through the square. Elias slowed his stride, judging angles. The convoy had no markings, but carried the stance of official power. Tinted windows, synchronized movement, the choreography of professionals. Across from him, Anja's body language changed, camera lowered, eyes sharper now. He clocked her reaction and filed it away. She knows something I don't. A man stepped forward from the center car. Tall, unhurried, wearing a charcoal wool coat and black gloves. The kind of man who'd spent a lifetime on the government payroll. Any government. "Mr. Ward." His English carried a faint Moscow lilt. "You've come far." Elias didn't answer. He let the silence hang, letting his left hand hover near his coat pocket, where a compact cig rested under fabric. Anja started moving toward them, pretending to fumble for her phone, slipping between pedestrians. She tapped her earpiece once. "Confirm identity. Who is he?" she whispered. "Static." Then one murmured phrase from her handler's voice, "FSB, Directorate S." Her stomach tightened. Directorate S, deep cover, illegals, the kind of ghostwork operations that didn't exist on record. Through the mist, the man smiled faintly. "You received our message, yes? Then you already know, the leak isn't Russian. It's NATO." He extended a small USB drive sealed in plastic. No one else seemed to notice. The tourists kept walking, pigeons scattering at the sound of a distant tram. The scene looked almost casual. Elias didn't move. "Why hand it to me?" "Because," the man said, "you're next on the kill list they built from it." A cold gust swept the square. Anya saw Thomas rising from the cafe terrace, his hand inside his coat. The FSB man's guards repositioned, subtle but precise. The geometry of death was forming before her eyes. And then, and only then Ward took a step forward. The sound of a siren flared again, closer this time. Someone was about to pull the trigger. The siren wailed closer, echoing off the cathedral walls, bouncing between the glass storefronts. Every head in the square turned toward the sound. The FSB man smiled faintly, stepping back as if in retreat, but his eyes said the opposite. "Seems your local friends have found us," he said calmly. "Unless, of course, that siren wasn't meant for me." Elias didn't blink. He read the scene in fragments, the guard by the third vehicle reaching under his jacket, Thomas lifting his coffee cup and radioing something into the sleeve mic, Anya's faint head tilt toward the bell tower across the street. Then the PA system crackled to life. A voice cut through the square in Lithuanian, clipped and official. "This is a security drill. Please remain calm." Elias's pulse slowed, but just barely. Drills didn't come with armed men and convoy cars that smelled of Russian oil. The sirens stopped. Habasin Sankatsu, Bigamani, Gundru stopped. Silence returned, heavier now. Anja backed toward a marble pillar near the cathedral's front steps, camera still dangling. She caught Elias's eye. A tiny signal. "Wait." Thomas halfway rose from his chair, then froze as he saw a red laser dot skimming across the car window behind Ward. Sniper scope. But the laser stopped not on Ward, not on the FSB man. On Anja. Elias saw it a second too late. "Down!" She dropped hard to the stone steps just as glass shattered from above. Tourists screamed, scattering toward the arcades. One guard crumpled near the car, struck clean. Elias's gun was out, but he didn't shoot. The angles were wrong, the vantage uncertain. The sniper wasn't Russian, wrong signature, wrong timing. This was local power trying to erase a meeting that should never have happened. The FSB man slipped behind the car door, crouched but still smiling. "Now you understand," he called out. "It's not east or west anymore. It's whoever controls the narrative." Then he tossed the USB drive underhand. It skidded across the wet stones, stopping just shy of Anya's hand. By the time she looked up, the convoy was reversing, tires screeching, the sniper's shots echoing once, and then silence. Only Elias, Anya, and Tomas remained standing amid frightened civilians and shards of cathedral glass. Sirens returned, real ones this time. Elias picked up the drive, eyes cold. "Looks like Vilnius just got interesting." Chapter 4, After the Square. Rain chased them down the narrow alleys off Piley's Street, slick stones shining under the weak afternoon light. Sirens wailed behind them, closer for a moment, then swallowed by distance. Elias ran point, leading them by instinct more than plan. He knew enough about Vilnius to lose a tail, never take two turns in the same direction, always pass through crowds, and never trust who's running beside you. By the time they reached the safe house, an unmarked Soviet-era walk-up above a shuttered print shop, the city had swallowed the noise of the square. Only the echo of boots on stairwell concrete remained. Inside, Thomas locked the door and pulled down the blackout curtain. The room smelled of dust, oil, and burnt coffee. "What the hell was that?" he snapped. "You bring Russians into our capital and expect no one to notice." Elias didn't rise to it. He dropped his soaked coat on the table, motioned to Anya. "USB." She hesitated. "We plug this into a clean system. Not yours, not mine." Thomas bristled. "You think VSD can't be trusted?" "I think no one can be trusted," she said flatly. Elias powered up a travel-grade air-gapped laptop. CIA issue, sanded serial removed. The device booted to a sterile white interface. No network ports, no Wi-Fi chip. "If this thing's dirty," he said, "we'll know quick." Anja slid the USB across the table. Elias slotted it in. A progress bar flickered once, twice. Then a single folder appeared, MERIDIAN Access. He opened it. Lines of encrypted text scrolled by. Among the clutter, one phrase stood out, fragments of English embedded in code. "Agency IA." Elias frowned. "This isn't Russian code. It's American." Thomas stepped forward, eyes narrowing. You're saying someone from your side authorized this breach? Anja leaned closer, voice tight. Or used my task force's credentials to make it look like I did. The rain outside intensified, tapping against the windows like fingernails. For a few seconds, none of them spoke. Then Elias said quietly, whatever Project Meridian is, somebody just started a war over it, and they're using us as the cover story. He unplugged the drive and dropped it into his pocket. We find whoever planted this data before they decide we're expendable. Thomas met his eyes. They already have. Chapter 5, Ghost Protocol. Brussels, NATO, headquarters. The air in the Situation Room was cold, the kind of bureaucratic chill that came from too much air filtration and not enough conscience. Screen walls lit up with satellite feeds from Vilnius. Blurred footage of Cathedral Square cordoned off, police lights flickering against wet stone. At the head of the table sat Deputy Director Sarah Klein, CIA European liaison, mid-50s, sharp suit, eyes like cut glass. Her voice was steady when she spoke, but the edges carried irritation. 3 agents off book in Vilnius, 1 dead Russian national, and now the Lithuanians are demanding answers we don't have, she said. Somebody tell me why I'm seeing this on a live feed instead of a declassified operations brief. Beside her, a NATO cyber official scrolled through data on a tablet. Local VSD units claim the Russians staged it, he said. FSB Directorate S asset confirmed on site. But, he hesitated, the data trail leads back to our own protocols, classified level Saturn. Klein frowned. Saturn's American jurisdiction. Which program? The analyst hesitated again. Project Meridian. A silence moved through the room. Klein's jaw tightened. That doesn't exist. Apparently it does, replied a British MI6 observer, grey-haired and calm as a chess player. And evidently your agency is running it under NATO cover without telling anyone else. Klein ignored the jab. Where are my field operatives now? Tracking lost after they left Cathedral Square, said another aide. One local source claims they went dark near Ujupis. No CCTV pickup. Klein looked up at the overhead camera. Then they're alive. And they're already a problem. She pressed a button on the table console. Activate sweep protocol. I want Ward, Petrescu, and Kavaliauskas located and extracted quietly. If the Russians get to them first, we lose narrative control. When you say extracted, asked the MI6 man evenly, do you mean rescued or removed? Klein's lips thinned. At this level, there's no difference. The room went silent again, save for the hum of the screens. On one of them, a grainy image froze, a drone still from the Vilnius shootout. 3 figures blurred by rain and motion. Klein stared at it for a long moment, then said softly, find them before the truth does. Chapter 6, Meridian. The storm hadn't let up. Vilnius was a net of reflections, sirens smeared against car windows, street lamps glowing like distant fires in the wet. Elias, Anja, and Thomas moved quickly through the back lanes of Ujupis, a neighborhood that wore its freedom like a disguise, bohemian cafes, murals, and artists hiding beneath the hum of quiet paranoia. They ducked into an old photography studio, closed but not locked. Thomas secured the door with a chair while Anja swept the shelves for anything electronic. The air smelled of developer fluid and damp plaster. Elias laid the USB drive on an old enlarger tray. Whatever Meridian is, he said, it's big enough for Americans and Russians to kill over. That means it's not just intelligence. Anja frowned. Cyber weapons? Maybe. Or worse, data control. Thomas turned, crossing his arms. Control how? Elias hesitated, pulling a folded sheet from his pocket, one he'd printed before leaving the safe house. Buried in the code was a reference to neural tagline synchronization. That's defense language for cognitive mapping. Meridian isn't about hacking systems, it's about hacking people. Anja stared at him. Behavioral engineering. More than that, Elias said. Predictive decision sequencing, Algorithms that learn your reactions before you make them. NATO's been developing something like it since 2024. The Russians wanted a piece. MERIDIAN must be an AI-enhanced psychological ops network. Whoever controls it controls perception. Thomas gave a low whistle. And you think someone leaked it to start a panic? No, but so, Elias replied quietly. Someone leaked it to erase everyone who knows it exists. Anja leaned against the counter, rubbing her temples. Then Brussels will bury this before sunrise. Unless we surface first, Elias said. She looked at him sharply. You mean leak it? He nodded once. Drop a dead man's packet to independent servers. Make sure if we vanish, MERIDIAN doesn't. Thomas shook his head. They'll brand you traitors. You'll start a war between allies. Elias met his stare. Maybe that war's already started. A low hum broke the silence, a faint electronic whine. Anja's eyes darted to the corner. A tiny red light blinked in the frame of an old mirror. Bugged, she hissed. Elias was already moving. He yanked the device free, Lithuanian military grade, not Russian. Thomas went pale. That's VSD issue. My agency's been tracking us. Tracking or targeting? Elias asked. Thomas didn't answer. Outside, a black SUV rolled slowly past the shop's front window, headlights off. Elias pocketed the drive. Time to find allies who aren't classified, move. Chapter 7. Flight Corridor. The rain finally broke near dawn, leaving the city draped in fog. Elias drove north on the A2 highway, headlights cutting narrow beams through the mist. The safe house and the studio were long behind them. Somewhere back in Vilnius, a forensic team would be sweeping up their prints, their faces already flagged under 3 different intelligence systems. Anja sat in the passenger seat scanning a decrypted map overlay on her tablet, offline only. Riga's 3 hours if the border's clean, she murmured. But there's no guarantee our IDs will hold. Klein's people will have circulated our photos to every NATO outpost in the Baltics by now. Elias kept his eyes on the road. Then we don't cross official channels. Tommy, in the back seat, reloaded his sidearm mechanically. You have another plan? I've got a contact near Šiauliai, Elias said. Ex-airbase tech stripped his credentials years ago. He can get us across into Latvia through the forest routes used by smugglers. No checkpoints. Anja looked up. You trust him? I don't trust anyone, Elias said. But he owes me. The silence that followed held the weight of that truth. Outside, the birch forests flickered past like ghosts, thin, whitey, and watching. Anja studied the decrypted data fragments again. If MERIDIAN's what you think, Riga's our only shot. NATO servers, Riga node, match a site called Nexus Data Command. It's buried in an old Cold War bunker near the Daugava River. If we reach it, we can prove MERIDIAN's not a Russian fabrication. Thomas tapped the window nervously. Or we find out it's worse than either side admits. A new alert blinked on Anja's screen, a NATO all-points bulletin. 3 wanted operatives, code red classification. Their faces. Their car. Already on every camera in the region, she said softly. Elias smiled faintly without looking at her. Then we'd better vanish before the next camera sees us. He swerved off the main road, taking a narrow track between pine trees. The GPS died within seconds, replaced by static. Anja turned to him. You killed the locator. Not me, he said. Someone's jamming the signal. A flicker of unease crossed her face. You think it's them? Elias' hands tightened on the wheel. No. This feels American. A shape of headlights appeared behind them, distant but closing. Thomas chambered around. The echo clicked sharp in the confined car. Whatever they are, Elias said, eyes on the mirror, they're not letting us cross that border alive. Chapter 8. The Border Run. Gravel sprayed from beneath the tires as Elias swerved off the paved road and into the tree line. The forest swallowed them whole, straight rows of pine blurring into streaks of grey and black. Lights off, he barked. Anja reached over, killed them. The world shrank to shadows and engine noise. Thomas craned his neck, watching the headlights behind them zigzag through the fog. 2 vehicles, maybe 3, he said. Running military formation. They shouldn't have been able to track us this far, Anja hissed. They didn't, Elias replied. They predicted us, Meridian data. The forest road narrowed into a service path, barely wide enough for 1 car. Branches clawed at the sides, bursts of pine needles scattering across the windshield. Shortcut to your contact? Anja asked between jolts. Eventually, Elias said. Assuming we're not dead by then. Behind them, a burst of automatic fire tore through the fog. Bullets chewed into bark, sparking splinters across the hood. Thomas ducked, returning 2 quick shots out the back window. They're not trying to disable. They're trying to force us into the valley, Thomas shouted. Elias gritted his teeth. Then we don't give them the choice. He jerked the wheel hard left, plunging off the track into a sloping field. The car bounced violently, crashing through wet brush before hitting a frozen stream bed. Tires caught air for a terrifying second and slammed down with a crunch of gravel. They'll lose radar trace, Anja yelled, clinging to the dashboard. Unless they have got a drone. As if summoned, the low hum of rotors filled the air. A dark shape swept overhead, strobing light through the fog. Elias slid the car under a copse of dense firs and killed the engine. The noise of the drone faded, circling wider, searching. No one breathed. Then, faintly, dogs barking. Thomas whispered, ground teams. Elias opened his door slowly. The cold bit through the night like a blade. We move on foot. North-northeast to the river, then cross. They can't follow without breaching Latvian airspace. Anja quickly sealed their radios, tablets and phones in heavy plastic before the crossing. A habit drilled into every operative sent anywhere unknown. The bags floated if dropped and held a few minutes of waterproof resistance, just enough to keep their gear alive on the other side. Electronics could be replaced, intel couldn't. Anja grabbed the drive, pocketing it. If we make it, she said softly. They ran. The forest floor was wet and uneven, branches whipping their faces, boots sinking into mud. Distant voices in Lithuanian barked commands, search patterns tightening. At the ridge edge, they saw the border below, a black ribbon of river under faint silver light. Beyond it, Latvia, tight-lipped safety that might not welcome them. Elias reached the slope first, paused, scanned the tree line. Now! They slid down the embankment, splashing into the freezing current. The shock cut through them like electricity, but the sound covered their movement. The drone returned briefly, spotlight flaring across the Lithuanian side, missing them by seconds. Anja gasped cold air between strokes. We're ghosts after this, she said. Ghosts still bleed, Elias replied. They reached the far shore, collapsed onto Latvian soil, soaked and heaving. For a few seconds, there was only silence but for the dripping trees. Then Thomas pointed upstream. A dim light glowed through the fog, old stone, steel doors, half buried in the forest. Elias followed his gaze. The Riga Nexus. He didn't know how he's recognized it, but the feeling in his gut told him they'd just crossed from one kind of danger into another. Chapter 9, The Nexus. The building looked abandoned, an old Soviet communications relay half submerged in moss and mist. Rusted antennas jutted from the roof like broken ribs, and the entrance sat half hidden beneath layers of ivy. Elias approached first, weapon low. A keypad beside the reinforced door still hummed faintly with power. Offline 3 decades and it's still drawing current, he muttered. Anja brushed mud from her sleeve and crouched beside the panel. Power like this usually means automated fallback. This bunker's alive in standby mode. Thomas scanned the tree line. Alive for who? Let's find out. She pulled a compact decryptor from her kit, jacked it into the keypad socket, and tapped a string of commands. The lock clicked open with a tired mechanical sigh, releasing a breath of stale, recycled air. Inside, the corridor was narrow and sterile, lined with peeling paint and fiber optic cables that looked far too modern for the decayed setting. Emergency LEDs glowed blue along the floor, illuminating a path deeper into the complex. They moved cautiously, hearing only their own breathing and the faint hum of systems running somewhere below. At the end of the corridor, a glass wall revealed a subterranean control hub, intact, humming, untouched by time. Anja wiped the glass with her sleeve. It's still running. The sign above the main console read, Nexus Data Command, Meridian Node. Monitors flickered to life as they stepped in. On every screen, fragments of faces and online profiles blurred into streams of numbers. News feeds, social accounts, biometric data, all linked by a lattice of AI code. Elias stared, jaw set. This isn't just surveillance. It's predictive influence. They're mapping global behavior patterns in real time. Anja's voice dropped to a whisper. Military-grade persuasion models. This is what happens when PSYOPs goes digital. A terminal near the back blinked with an active prompt. User access, DC1, awaiting authentication. Elias looked at it grimly. Who was the last user? Anja typed a query. The screen responded immediately. Last logged user, Client S. Last access, 7:42 UTC, Lena Brussels. Anja and Elias exchanged a look. Thomas stepped back, muttering, Your deputy director's already here, digitally. Before anyone spoke again, the bunker lights dimmed. Fans slowed. On the main monitor, a new line of text appeared slowly, as if typed by an unseen hand. You were never supposed to find this. Then the doors sealed shut with a deep metallic clang. Elias drew his gun, scanning the corners. Someone's inside the system. The screens went black except one, which now showed 3 silhouettes walking through the forest. Their own. Anja swallowed. They've been watching since Vilnius. Under the image, new text flashed in red. Primary protocol engaged, cleanup. Thomas whispered, cleanup means termination. Elias stepped toward the terminal. Then somebody just declared open season. Chapter 10, Clean Sweep. The sirens came first, low pulsing tones that vibrated through the floor. Then the bunker came alive. Panels along the walls slid open, revealing sealed compartments and dormant defense drones that suddenly blinked red. Anja slammed her hands against the main console. They've overridden local control. Elias grabbed her shoulder. Can you kill it? I can stall it. Her fingers flew over the keys. Manual lockdown protocol, give me 30 seconds. The doors at the far end of the hub shuddered and began to retract. Beyond them, dark shapes advanced, armored silhouettes in unmarked tactical gear, goggles shining under the emergency lights. Thomas raised his weapon. Not VSD. Not NATO. Private hitters. Elias checked his pistol's magazine, lips taut. Cleanup crew. Klein's deniable assets. The first breach charge detonated. Concrete dust rolled through the room like smoke. The 3 dropped behind overturned stations as bursts of suppressed gunfire hissed past. Left side clear, Thomas shouted, firing short controlled bursts. 2 figures dropped, armor clattering against steel. Anja yanked a conduit cable from the main rack and jammed it into a secondary port. Sparks spat across her hands. I can reroute security, turn the defense drones on manual override. Do it. Bullets chewed into consoles. Elias spotted a reflection in a glass pane and fired back. A clean headshot, one assailant down. Then the floor tremored. Ceiling vents hissed open, releasing a cloud of gas that smelled faintly of disinfectant. Anesthetic compound, Anja coughed, tying a scarf around her mouth. Knockout dose. Thomas kicked over a heavy storage crate and ducked behind it. So they want us alive. Elias tossed him his jacket. Put this on and stay low. This gas will sink, clear airs near the vents. He crawled toward the terminal, half blind in the haze. Nice. Time to let all that built-up tension pay off in a hard hit on the bunker. The first explosion was distant, a dull thud that shivered dust from the ceiling. The second was closer, sharp enough to rattle the glass walls of the control hub. "Charges on the outer access," Thomas snapped, already moving to the far side of the room. "They're not testing, they're cutting their way in." Anja's fingers flew over the terminal. "I'm locking secondary doors, buying us minutes, not more." The Nexus map flashed on screen, 3 red markers converging on the bunker from different vectors. Above them, a timer began counting down from 300 seconds. 5 minutes, Elias said. "Less if they brought thermite." He crossed to a metal storage cabinet, yanked it open. Inside, emergency kits, 2 old model carbines, and a crate of flashbangs stamped with a faded NATO emblem. "Arm up!" "Arm up," he ordered. "We're not going quietly." Concrete dust drifted from the vent grills as another blast shook the structure. Somewhere above, metal screamed against rock. Anja didn't turn from the console. "We can't just shoot our way out. I'm initiating a data bleed, compressed dump of Meridian's core routines to a blind public relay. If we die here, this doesn't." Thomas swore. "You'll bring half the world down on us if that leak hits open channels." "Good." "And good," Elias said, loading a carbine. "Then they'll have to explain why it existed." A new alert flashed. "External override attempt. Source, NATO HQ, Brussels." Anja hissed through her teeth. "Klein's trying to wipe the node remotely. If she overwrites before my dump finishes, this was for nothing." The timer dropped below 200 seconds. The corridor outside filled with echoing footsteps, measured, professional. No shouted orders. No panic. A kill team that had done this before. Elias tossed Thomas a flashbang. "Stairwell." "On my mark." The inner door shuddered as a breaching charge clamped into place with a magnetic click. "Now!" Elias yelled. The blast blew the door inward just as Thomas lobbed the flash. White light and concussive sound turned the corridor into a howl. Silhouettes stumbled. Elias and Thomas opened precise, controlled fire, aimed at armor gaps, not bodies, minimizing fatalities, but stopping movement. 2 operators went down hard. A third rolled behind cover, returning a tight burst that chewed into the doorframe inches from Elias's head. "Different uniforms," Thomas muttered between shots. "Not Lithuanian. Not Russian." Anja glanced up once. "Blue trim, no flag, that's NATO Special Operations. They're our own people." The timer hit 120 seconds. Elias ducked back behind the console bank. "Anja, how long?" 2 more minutes for a partial payload," she said. "Full Meridian core would need 5 we don't have. Take what you can. Enough to prove it's real." The bunker lights flickered as someone upstairs cut external power. Backup systems kicked in with a low rumble. A voice boomed from the corridor, American accent amplified through a throat mic. "Ward, Petrescu, stand down and step into the hall with your hands visible. This site is compromised. You are under Alliance detention." Elias called back, "You try detention after you send a cleanup team? You really think we're that naive?" A pause. Then colder, "You were never meant to reach this node. Orders are to contain the breach. Don't make us follow them." Anja's screen flashed. "Data bleed, 63%, 64%. She whispered, "Almost there." "Oh, Manny." The kill team shifted tactics. No more blind charges. A canister bounced into the room. Hissing. "Gas!" Thomas shouted, kicking it toward the far wall. It discharged a pale mist that crawled low over the floor. Anja yanked a pair of respirators from a wall box, tossed one to Elias, one to Tomas. "Military anesthetic, short term. They want us alive enough to sign confessions." Elias slipped the mask on, then grabbed one more from the box and shoved it into Anja's hands. "You're not passing out on that console." The timer hit 60 seconds. Another breach charge began its high-pitched whine on the secondary inner door. No flash this time, just pure blast. Thomas reloaded, eyes hard. We can't hold this room and the access point. Elias met his gaze. We're not holding it. We're buying it. He moved fast, dragging a steel server rack into a rough barricade before the doorway. We fall back to the auxiliary exit. Once the dump hits 70%, we pull. Live to fight the rest. Anja nodded without looking up. 70 and I trigger a dead man switch. If my heartbeat flatlines, the rest of Meridian goes wide. The second blast tore through what remained of the inner barrier. Shards of metal and concrete screamed across the room. Through the smoke, dark shapes advanced, visors down, rifles raised, moving with icy precision. The timer hit 30. Move, Elias shouted. They fired in controlled bursts, retreating down a side passage toward a maintenance hatch Anya had flagged on the schematic. Behind them, the Nexus hub drowned in gunfire and static, its screens still streaming the data of a world that didn't know it was being mapped. At 71%, the console executed Anya's last command. Far above the bunker, somewhere in the distributed wilds of the internet, a packet of forbidden code slipped quietly into the world. Chapter 11, Damage Control, Brussels, NATO, Cyber Command. 3:22 UTC. The room was deathly quiet, except for the low hum of screens and the faint tick of a clock that no one remembered hanging there. Deputy Director Sarah Klein stood in front of a large holographic display showing the familiar swirl of network traffic. But something new pulsed in red across every node, a spreading echo pattern crawling through allied systems. A young technician swallowed hard. Data bleed confirmed, ma'am. Origin, Riga Nexus. Classified payload fragments circulating through secondary civilian networks. How much got out? Klein asked without turning. Estimate, 71%. Encrypted packets seeded across at least 12 darknet hubs. We can't scrub that many without tripping public sensors. Klein's jaw tightened. Contents? The technician hesitated. Behavioral modeling code. Cross-referencing social media, biometric telemetry, psychological metrics, all bearing NATO and US. Defense tags. In the gallery behind her, senior officials murmured, the low growl of career survival instinct. Public eyes on this? She demanded. Not yet. Packet headers are disguised as medical research datasets. But any analyst with clearance will recognize it within hours. Klein finally turned, eyes scanning the faces around the conference tier. So in hours, the world learns NATO built an AI designed to profile entire populations. Wonderful. The MI6 observer leaned forward wearily. Then the next step's obvious. Deny ownership before Moscow starts projecting the leak as another American psyop. Klein's fingers drummed against her tablet. Too late for denial. Ward's team transmitted authentication keys, verified CIA origin. They might not have meant to, but he just signed their death warrants. She paused. Initiate Black Vector Protocol. Contain all field channels, purge Riga node access logs. I want every data relay burned by sunrise. An aide frowned. And the field operatives? They went dark before extraction team confirmation. Assume hostile territory until proven otherwise. Klein looked back at the spreading red pattern, voice low. If they're alive, they're liabilities. Make sure they stay ghosts. The British observer exhaled. And what happens when the press finds the fragments? Klein gave him a thin, tired smile. Then we call it what everyone wants to believe, Russian disinformation. It's the only truth that sells. She turned back to the map. The red bloom had nearly reached London. Pull the plug, she ordered. Someone hesitated. That'll black out civilian grids for 6 member states. Do it. Electric blue replaced red as the system went dark. Across Europe, screens flickered, satellites switched standby. For one frozen moment, the continent held its breath. Then Klein said to no one in particular, Now let's hope Ward dies before he realizes how right he was. Chapter 12, Into the Cold. For a long time they moved in darkness. The maintenance tunnels snaked beneath the forest like veins, humid, echoing with the drip of condensed water and the hum of machines still trying to die. Elias's flashlight beam cut across cracked concrete. "Keep moving. Fresh air's ahead." Anja coughed from the dust. Her hands trembled from adrenaline and exhaustion. "We lost them, for now." Behind them, Thomas limped slightly, one arm pressed to his side. The extraction corridor collapsed after the last blast. "If we hadn't exited when we did—" "Don't remind me," Elias muttered. They reached a grated service hatch. Elias forced it open with his shoulder, the hinges shrieking protest. Cold night air spilled in, clean and biting. He climbed out first, helping the others up. They emerged into a stretch of pine forest beyond the river. Latvian side, dawn bleeding grey and silver through the mist. For a moment none of them spoke, each catching breath, listening for engines that never came. Anja dropped to her knees by a fallen log, pulling off her respirator. "We're alive." Thomas gave a half laugh that sounded more like disbelief. "Barely." Elias scanned the distance, the tree line, the fog-covered valley below. "They'll think we're dead. Debris will have buried the node completely." Anja turned toward him, eyes dark. "And Meridian?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a small receiver from his pack, a portable comm scanner patched to civilian frequencies. A soft signal blinked, data still dripping through the networks. "It's out," he said quietly. "Not all of it, but enough. The leak reached the net before they hit us." She stared at the readout, fragments of code scrolling in unstructured bursts. "So the world's about to see what kind of monster it's been feeding." Elias nodded. "And they'll lie to clean it up." Thomas sat back against the frozen earth. "Then what happens to us?" Elias looked toward the ridge, where faint red light rose with the dawn. "We find a line they can't erase. Someone who'll listen." Anja managed a tired smile. "And when we've done that?" "Then," Elias said, "we figure out if we're the good guys anymore." For a long moment, the three of them just sat in the pale morning silence, steam rising from their breath, the forest still humming from the night's violence. Somewhere far to the southwest, across the hidden fiber lines of Europe, a piece of Meridian continued to copy itself. And for the first time, nobody knew who was in control. Chapter 13. Echoes Abroad. Situation Room, Moscow. FSB Strategic Directorate, Lubyanka. March 24, 9:11 local time. The lights were kept deliberately dim. Screens glowed in a ring around the table where Major General Oleg Morozov reviewed the translated data fragments projected in Cyrillic. A young analyst shuffled nervously nearby. "Confirmed sources from multiple darknet clusters, sir. The payload bears authentic NATO metadata. Behavioral mapping algorithms cross-linked with biometric input. Name reference, Project Meridian." Morozov's heavy brow furrowed. "So the Atlantic Alliance builds a psychological weapon and loses control before testing it. Typical Western arrogance." A second officer, older, leaned closer. "Or disinformation. Maybe the Americans planted this themselves to justify new cybersecurity laws." Morozov grunted. "Always possible. But then why silence their own field team? We intercepted comms, gunfire in Riga, satellite blackout over the Baltics. That's not theater." He tapped the table's surface. Images and names bloomed across the screen. Elias Ward, Anya Petrescu, Thomas Kavaliauskas. "Track them," he said quietly. "If NATO kills them, we lose our best witnesses. If we get them first, we hold proof the West manipulates global populations." "Extraction or elimination?" the aide asked. Morozov's lips curved faintly. "Whichever serves the motherland best." Thames House, London, MI6, Operations Directorate. March 24. 7:23 GMT. A thin rain streaked the windows as Deputy Chief Eleanor Hawke read the early morning flash brief from Brussels. Her tone when she spoke was dry enough to cut glass. "Well, this will make breakfast interesting." She handed the tablet to an aide. "NATO's pet project gone rogue. and the Americans already spinning it as Russian sabotage. Her intelligence liaison frowned. "Do we believe it?" Hawk shook her head. "Believe in truth? That's quaint. We believe in leverage. And right now, whoever holds Meridian's source code holds the moral high ground, or the illusion of it." She looked toward a digital wall map pulsing with signal traces. "Find the leak originators before Moscow does. If they reach a journalist first, the alliance fractures internally." The aide hesitated. "And if they reach us first?" Hawk allowed herself the smallest smile. "Then perhaps the United Kingdom suddenly rediscovers its independence in the information age. Two capitals. Two rival interpretations. Each convinced the data proved the other's corruption. Each quietly preparing to weaponize the truth. And somewhere in the forests between them, three fugitives were about to realize that every side now wanted them alive, but not for long. Chapter 14, The Red Hunt. Latvian borderlands, nightfall. The forest had gone quiet in that uncanny way that meant something was moving through it, something trained. Elias crouched by the riverbank, scanning with night optics. Beyond the misted current, faint infrared signatures flickered. Disciplined spacing, synchronized movement, no chatter. Anja whispered from behind him, "They're not NATO." "No," Elias said. "Too clean, too quiet. That's FSB doctrine. They don't chase, they close the circle." Thomas checked the magazine of his rifle, then pointed toward a ridge where faint light pulsed. Thermal drones sweeping grid patterns. 10 minutes before they fence us in. Anja's breath clouded in the cold. After everything in Vilnius and Riga, now we're quarry in someone else's game. Elias gave a humorless smile. "Welcome to the profession." He unfolded a ragged map, old Soviet-era terrain markings. "There's an abandoned logging settlement 5 kilometers northwest. Deep cellars. If we can reach it, we buy time to send a signal out." Anja frowned. "A signal to who? Klein's hunting us." "NATO wants us buried." "Which leaves the only people who need to keep us breathing," Elias said. "The press." Thomas shook his head. "You'd trust journalists over intelligence services?" "I'd trust anyone who can still be embarrassed," Elias replied, pushing to his feet. They started moving, low and fast through the thick undergrowth. The night seemed endless, layers of fog and pine and distant engine noise. Every few seconds, a drone's spotlight sliced through the trees, probing, searching. Anja glanced upward. "They're using thermal lock. They'll see us the moment we break cover." "Then we won't break cover," Elias said. They followed the river deeper into a valley, wading waist-deep through the freezing water to mask their signatures. The pain kept them focused. Half an hour later, Thomas froze and raised his hand. Voices in Russian drifted from up the slope, clipped radio calls, disciplined, closer than expected. Elias signaled silence and listened. The leader's tone was calm, efficient. "Sector 9 clear. No resistance yet. Command authorization, use of tranquil agents if viable. Bring primary targets alive." Anja shot him a look. "Alive? They want us to talk," Elias murmured. "Maybe they think Meridian came from their side. Or maybe they want to use us," Thomas said. A spotlight swung closer. The trio dropped to the ground, blending with the riverbank mud. A beam passed inches above them, then drifted on. Once it was gone, Elias exhaled. "We reach that settlement or die here." They moved again, slower now. The sound of engines faded, replaced by the eerie stillness of Latvian winter. Trees whispering, water trickling, nerves vibrating with adrenaline. But somewhere behind them, the FSB team adjusted course. A targeting beacon blinked in rhythmic pulses as Morozov's voice transmitted through their encrypted headsets from Moscow. "And do not kill the Americans. Capture. Especially Ward. If he uploads what's left of Meridian, it will rewrite the battlefield before we ever fire a bullet." Chapter 15. The Logging Settlement. The village wasn't marked on any modern map, just a scatter of dark shapes in the hollow, half claimed by the forest. A Soviet logging camp, long abandoned, its sawmill collapsed beneath decades of snow and rot. Elias reached it first, scanning the outlines through the night vision lens. "No heat signatures," he whispered. "We've got cover. For now." They moved between weather-beaten cabins until Anya found what she'd been hoping for, a satellite relay tower behind the old administrative shack. Its dish sagged, but the receiver blinked faintly with residual power. She set her pack down, teeth chattering. "If this still talks to the network, I can piggyback Meridian's fragments out through civilian channels. Anonymous, high noise-to-signal ratio. They won't be able to trace it until it's too late." Thomas rubbed frost from his gloves. "And when every intelligence service on Earth starts slicing the network apart looking for that signal?" She gave him a thin smile. "They'll find each other first." Elias kept watch from a shattered window, the carbine loose but ready. Through the mist, faint light shimmered where the forest thickened, infrared sweeps approaching again. "You've got 10 minutes tops." Anja connected her portable decryptor to the dish's control panel. Sparks popped. The crude interface flared to life. "Signal found," she muttered. "Patch unstable, but alive." Elias risked a glance outside. Snowflakes had begun drifting down, soft and soundless. The darkness felt heavier now, pressing against the walls like a held breath. "Movement, North Ridge," Thomas hissed, eyes on his scope. 2 units, spreading pattern." Elias nodded once. "Set defense perimeters. When they breach visual, we move toward the tree line, not the road." "Why?" Thomas asked. "Because they'll expect the road," Elias said. "That's why we survive." Inside, Anja's screen flashed with cascading code. She bit her lip. Upload initiated, 14% complete. The first burst of automatic fire cut through the stillness, chopping splinters from a nearby cabin wall. "Contact," Thomas barked, firing back in controlled bursts. Anja didn't look up. "Cover me." Elias crouched beside her, returning fire between bursts. Shadows flitted between the trees, disciplined, methodical, closing. "Upload at 45%, she called out. "Make it faster," Elias yelled, ejecting a spent magazine. "Tell the universe to bend time while you're at it," she shot back. Another grenade hit a cabin, shaking the ground. Firelight flickered off melting snow. 72%. Elias saw them now. 6 agents in black tactical armor, ghosts among the trees. He fired, then ducked as return fire shredded the wooden frame. "Thomas!" "North flank holding." Anja hissed as sparks leapt from the console. "Signal interference. They're trying to jam the feed." "Override it," Elias ordered, emptying his last magazine. "I am overriding." "Then do it louder." She slammed a final command in. The dish whined, its mechanism jerking upward as blue light arced across the panel. "Upload complete. 98, 99, done." The instant she said it, a single shot cracked from the darkness and shattered the relay's core. The light died, smoke rising in hissing tendrils. Anja ducked. "Connection's dead." Elias helped her up. "But the data's gone." "Gone," she confirmed. "I seeded 3 decentralized nodes across the network. They can't stop it now." Good, he thought, but the FSB wouldn't know that. They'd keep coming. Elias turned toward Thomas, ready to signal retreat. But the Lithuanian wasn't moving. He was down by the doorframe, blood dark against his jacket. "Sniper," Anya breathed. Elias dropped beside him, fingers pressing the wound. Thomas's eyes fluttered. "Don't let them rewrite it." "I won't," Elias said. The voices outside grew louder, Russian, crisp, closing fast. Elias looked at Anya. "Back exit. Now." They slipped through the rear window into the tree line, snow swallowing their footsteps. Behind them, FSB searchlights lanced through the clearing, illuminating the blood trail, the shattered dish, and the body of the man who'd refused to surrender. The forest took them again, silent and merciless. Chapter 16, The Winter Road. The forest stretched endless, a labyrinth of black bark and silver frost. Elias and Anya moved through it like ghosts, the cold tightening around them until even their breath came out in brittle clouds. They didn't speak for a long time. Night merged into grey dawn, then back into night again. The only sound was snow crunching beneath their boots and the faint hum of drones somewhere too high to see. When they finally stopped, it was beside an old hunting shack near the Daugava tributary. The place was half collapsed, but it would keep out the wind. Anja leaned against the doorway, trembling with exhaustion. "We can't keep this up forever," she murmured. Elias dropped his pack, scanning the tree line out of habit. "We don't have to. The data's out there now. Meridian can't be buried." She met his gaze. "You think that makes us safe?" "No," he said quietly. "It makes us useful. There's a difference." Inside, the shack smelled of pine resin and old smoke. Elias tore a strip from his shirt and wrapped the bruised gash on his arm. A splinter from the grenade, minor but deep. Anja helped wordlessly, tightening the bandage until he winced. "You shouldn't have stayed back in the relay," he said. "You shouldn't have saved me," she countered. "We both made poor tactical decisions." For a moment, the weight of everything pressed down. Thomas's last words, the smoke, the faces of the dead. Anja broke the silence. "You still think it was worth it? Exposing Meridian?" Elias stared at the window where the first traces of dawn bent through the trees. "The truth doesn't save people. It just makes them harder to control." She pulled the small transmitter from her jacket, their last link to the outside. "I can use civilian frequencies to listen, nothing more. We'll know how bad it gets." Static cracked, then bled into fragments of news chatter. Multiple outlets, multiple languages, all telling the same story. NATO confirms breach of classified network, blames Russian cyber infiltration. Moscow accuses Western coalition of manipulating civilian populations through AI. Markets drop, protests form, power outages reported. Anja turned down the volume. "They're rewriting it already." Elias nodded once. "Then we find someone they can't rewrite." She looked at him skeptically. "A journalist?" "A free one," he said. "There are still a few left in this world. Maybe one brave enough to hear us." Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant engines, faint but closing. Elias stood, checking his weapon. "Looks like the world's coming to find us before we can find it." Anja slung her pack over her shoulder. "Then we keep moving." They left the shack and stepped back into the endless pale woods, the horizon beginning to glow faint pink. Somewhere beyond the trees waited either redemption or another lie dressed as truth. And high above them, across half the world's networks, the leaked fragments of Project Meridian continued to replicate, rewriting reality line by line. Chapter 17, Corporate Ghosts. The first sign they weren't alone came in the form of silence. Not the natural stillness of the forest, but the kind that followed when something electronic started listening. Elias stopped mid-stride, palm raised. "Hear that?" Anja tilted her head. No birds, no wind. Then a thin, synthetic chirp, the sound of a micro-drone triangulating position. "New players," she whispered. "But that's not FSB frequency." Elias frowned. "Private." He drew a compact scanner from his jacket, toggled a frequency sweep. The display lit with encrypted pings. Rotating call signs registered to Aegis Defense Solutions, a London-based security contractor known unofficially as NATO's corporate shadow. "They don't work for governments," he said. "They lease them." Anja's hands tightened on her pack straps. "So who hired them?" Elias gave a grim smile. "Anyone with money or guilt." They pushed north again, keeping low through the frozen brush, but the forest had grown hostile. The Aegis drones didn't attack, they herded, guiding them toward an unseen perimeter. Within an hour, smoke thinned in the distance. Campfire glow too bright to be military. Elias crept forward until he could see them. 4 men and a woman in grey tactical coats, eating from ration packs beside 2 all-terrain buggies equipped with sensor towers. One of the buggies bore the faint outline of a corporate logo and the slogan, "Security Beyond Borders." Anja whispered, "Mercenaries." "Collectors," Elias corrected. "They want the data fragments you seeded. Meridian's worth billions to anyone who owns even a shred." "How do you know they don't already have it?" "Because we're still breathing," he said. A twig snapped under Anya's boot. The woman near the campfire looked up instantly, scanning through night vision goggles. "Move," Elias hissed. They sprinted through the trees as suppressed fire cracked behind them, short, controlled bursts designed to maim, not kill. Tracking rounds, Anya gasped, ducking behind a fallen tree. "They're tagging us." Elias felt a sharp sting on his shoulder and ripped free a small magnetic disc the size of a coin. Its LED blinked once, twice, and went dark. "Active locators," he muttered. "That means ground intercept in under 10 minutes. He yanked open a compartment on his rifle, extracted a slim metal capsule, and jammed it into the snow. Anja glanced at it. "EMP charge?" "Homemade variety." He pulled her down behind a ridge and clicked the detonator. A sharp pop rang out, followed by a rush of static. Every drone overhead fell silent, tumbling into the forest like dead leaves. The silence that followed was fleeting, replaced by the distant roar of engines. "They'll have backup," Anya said. "I'm counting on it," Elias replied, eyes narrowing. "If they're mercenaries, someone's paying. Which means there's a trail, and we just need to follow it backwards." The engines drew closer, headlights piercing the fog. Elias chambered around, breath steady. "Ready?" he said. Anja nodded. "You have a plan?" "Not a good one." The buggies broke through the mist, black, armored, built for speed. The lead driver spotted them too late. Elias fired once into the snowbank ahead, detonating a line of mines he'd salvaged from Thomas's old kit. The explosion turned the clearing into a storm of fire and frost. Anja grabbed his arm. "Now what?" "Now," he said, watching the flames twist into the fog, "we make them think they caught the wrong ghosts." Chapter 18. The Fires in the Fog. The blast left the forest alive with echoes. Snow fell in heavy clumps from the trees as pieces of the first buggy burned, its fuel hissing like steam over coals. Elias and Anya dropped into a crouch behind a half-frozen ditch. He could still hear engines, a second vehicle circling wide to flank. "2 down, 3 left," he said. Anja tightened her scarf. "They'll move fast now." Shock response. Elias nodded. "Good." Predictable beats professional. Infrared beams cut through the haze as the mercenaries advanced in staggered pairs. Elias spotted the lead through the scope, clean movements, tactical calm. They weren't panicked, they were testing positions. The first gunman crept within 20 meters, boots crunching. Elias waited for the pause, the half-second gap between breath and trigger pull, then fired. The man dropped without a sound. "Right flank," Anya shouted. Elias turned just as 2 more shadows emerged from the fog, muzzle flashes strobing. He shoved Anya down and returned fire, short, efficient shots. One of the attackers screamed, fell face first into the snow. The other faded back into the dark. "Reloading," Elias muttered. Anja pulled the dead man's weapon, checked the chamber. "He's got biometric safeties." Elias wiped soot from his cheek. "Corporate loyalty at its dumbest." A female voice called from the fog, clear and confident. "Ward, I know you're alive. Your FSB friends are closer than you think. Drop whatever's left of your data cache and walk out. You might even survive the night." Elias exhaled sharply, recognizing the tone, someone who smiled while they aimed. "Contractor lead," he whispered. "She knows your name," Anya said quietly. "They always do." He rose halfway, loud enough for his voice to carry. "You don't even know what you're hunting, do you?" The voice answered coolly, "You mean Meridian? Oh, I know. And the companies that built it want their property back." Property. The word hit like a spark. Elias ducked as another barrage tore across the ridge. He pulled Anya behind cover and whispered, "We're not their targets. They want the device synced to your upload. Her eyes widened. You mean my tablet? They can find you through it. She slid it from her pack, stared at it for a heartbeat, then hurled it into the flames. Circuits crackled, the screen spidered, and the glow dimmed. Silence, then the woman's voice again. That was unfortunate. Now you're ghosts without guidance. Elias replied, then stop talking and prove it. The last attacker moved in close, careless in the smoke. Elias caught the flicker of movement, turned, and drove the rifle butt square into his chest. The mercenary went down hard. Anja grabbed his comm unit before the static cut out. Encrypted signal. Let's see where she's broadcasting from. Chapter 19. The Man Behind the Curtain. Aegis Control Hub, Tallinn, Estonia. Miles away, within the top floor of a private hangar complex, Adam Reeve, CEO of Aegis Defense, watched the feed dissolve into static. Signal loss on Team Beta, a technician reported. Telemetry ends Delta Sector, Latvian border. Reeve didn't flinch. A scar ran from his temple into neatly shaven hairline, a souvenir from a past life in the SAS. He sipped black coffee, staring at the satellite projection. So the ghosts of Vilnius are proving expensive. Another operator said quietly, should we dispatch reinforcements? Reeve shook his head. No. The noise level from NATO and Moscow is already deafening. A direct kill op draws heat. But Ward and Petrescu, they're survivors. Survivors are predictable. He tapped one finger on a glowing spot marked Riga Metropolitan Data Node. They'll need another network to broadcast proof of Meridian before it's rewritten down the line. We control the nodes. They'll come to us eventually. And when they do? The technician asked. Reeve smiled faintly. We don't kill them. We acquire them. He turned toward the glass wall overlooking the city, where cargo planes took off in the pre-dawn mist. Tell the board the hunt continues, he said, and make sure Brussels keeps blaming Moscow a little longer. Confusion keeps prices high. Chapter 20. Ghosts and Shadows. They made camp along a frozen creek an hour before dawn. Smoke from a tiny fire drifted into the mist, hidden under a lean-to of broken pine. Anja sat cross-legged beside the dying flame, stripping the captured comm unit of its casing. Inside, a microchip pulsed faintly. A corporate beacon still trying to phone home. Elias crouched beside her. Can you trace the origin? I can isolate fragments. Whoever's running this network has layered encryption deeper than most governments. She soldered a lead into the device, eyes flicking to the readings flashing on her tablet's cracked display. After a minute, she exhaled. Tallinn. The signal routes through an air cargo hub owned by Aegis Defense Solutions. Elias nodded slowly. Private sector spook farm. Half their board are ex-Intel chiefs. So Klein knew, Anja said bitterly. She didn't lose control. She outsourced it. He stirred the fire with a stick. Or they took it from her. Static flared from the comm unit, a faint male voice, clipped mid-Atlantic accent. All field assets hold pursuit. Ward and Petrescu are valuable. Asset retrieval protocol only. Anja looked up. They want us alive. Elias gave a humorless laugh. Because corpses don't write contracts. The signal ended. Whoever that was, Anja murmured, he sounded calm, like he's already won. Elias tightened the strap on his pack. Then we make him nervous. By doing what? By finding public eyes before he finds us. Journalists, hackers, anyone not on a government payroll. She leaned back against the cold rock, exhaustion showing in her face. And when every side wants to own us? Then we remind them we're still free, he said quietly. The first traces of morning light filtered through the trees. Elias stamped out the coals. We move east. Border towns mean connections. Connections mean communication. And communication means hope. Chapter 20. The Woman and the Board. Brussels, NATO Liaison Wing. The bright veneer of order had worn thin. Offices hummed with analysts trying to contain the Meridian narrative. Every new report only deepened the chaos. Sarah Klein stalked into her office, jaw tight. On her desk, an encrypted dossier marked Aegis Defense, confidential procurement waited, freshly delivered by internal courier. She scanned it quickly. Invoices, subcontract approvals, signatures, her own digital authorization key grafted beside Aegis's logo. Her stomach dropped. Unauthorized replication, she muttered. Somebody cloned my signature. Her aide hovered at the doorway. The council's asking if you'll confirm Aegis handled Meridian security under your directive. Klein closed the file. If I confirm that, NATO owns a private sector black operation inside Europe. If I deny it, I'm the one who authorized treason. The aide hesitated. Ma'am, Aegis just froze your credentials on their end. Klein looked up sharply. They did what? Cut communication access. Claimed it's under temporary neutralization. Their CEO, Adam Reeve, requested direct talks with the Secretary General. Klein paced to the window, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. Reeve thinks he can make NATO hostage to cleanup. He's wrong. She turned back, voice cold. Pull every internal trace on Meridian's procurement trail. I want proof Aegis manipulated initiative funding, something that turns this from scandal to blackmail. The aide swallowed. And if they come after you? Klein's mouth curved into a razor smile. Then I'll leak them myself. No corporation survives sunlight. Outside, digital tickers scrolled breaking headlines, markets reeling after Meridian leak. London firms under scrutiny. FSB denies involvement. And for the first time since the operation began, Sarah Klein wasn't thinking about saving NATO. She was thinking about saving herself. Chapter 21. The Contact. The border town of Valka barely stirred at dawn. Little more than a half-sleeping collection of cafes, rail depots, and cracked neon signs straddling Latvia and Estonia. Elias and Anya entered on foot, bundled in mismatched coats, faces obscured by scarves and exhaustion. They stopped at a shabby gas station where the smell of diesel mixed with strong coffee and melted snow. A public Wi-Fi node blinked weakly near the cash register. Anya whispered, "We can't use normal channels." Elias nodded. "So we don't. But we can bait the right eyes." She opened the encrypted shell on her tablet, typing a short broadcast into an obscure hacker forum used by digital activists and reporters. The post read, Bate, Meridian confirmed. Riga node compromised. Witnesses alive. Seeking neutral publication, priority truth over politics. She signed it under a pseudonym once used during an old Romania assignment, Carpathia Ghost. Within minutes, a reply appeared, simple, clean, efficient. And this is Kai Lysander, Independent, London, Madrid. Send proof header. 15-min verification window. Anja looked up. He's real, former Reuters, now freelance. Investigated data corruption contracts a few years back. No known corporate masters. Sounds suicidal enough to trust, Elias said. They uploaded a single decrypted fragment, the part of Meridian showing neural behavioral adaptability matrices tied to civilian data streams, proof it existed. 5 minutes later, the reply came. Meet point, rail line, sector 12 signal hut, 23-0 local. You'll have 5 minutes before I vanish too. Anja locked the tablet. He's risking everything. Then he might be the last honest one left, Elias said softly. They left the cafe just as a delivery truck rumbled by, and in its reflection on the glass, Elias caught something that turned his stomach cold. A camera orb hovering on anti-grav stabilizers, corporate issue. He tugged Anya's sleeve. We've got watchers. Move separate routes. Meet him tonight or we lose the moment. She nodded and disappeared into the crowd. Elias lingered a second longer, staring at the hovering drone until it peeled away into the fog, vanishing toward the north, toward Tallinn. Chapter 22. The Reckoning of Reeve. Aegis Headquarters, Tallinn. Adam Reeve leaned against the balcony railing outside the command suite, suit immaculate, eyes half closed as morning light touched the skyline. Inside, digital boards streamed panic, Meridian fragments spreading, NATO investigation pending, Brussels inquiry convening. He turned as his operations chief entered. Klein. Still holding her ground, the chief said. Already feeding leaks to European press about Aegis overreach. Reeve smiled thinly. Good. The more she screams, the guiltier she looks. Your next move, sir? He stepped back into the room, gesturing toward a holographic model of the network map. Control the narrative, not the truth. Truth dies on its own. Narrative needs cultivation. He tapped a node glowing in red, Valka region. Ward and Petrescu are heading there. They think they're contacting an idealist. Lysander, yes? He works freelance, but on whose cloud service? The chief typed a command. A new logo flared on screen, Aegis Data Infrastructure. Reeves' grin widened. They're already inside our ecosystem. Let them upload. We trace every byte they send. And then we decide whether we buy them or bury them. He watched the red node pulse brighter, spreading across Europe like a living wound. Meridian isn't a weapon anymore, he murmured. It's the future's stock market. And we own the exchange. Outside, sleet whipped the tarmac, and the low hum of engines rose, Aegis teams deploying north under cloudy skies. The hunt was about to begin again. Chapter 23. The Signal Hut. Valka 2300. The rain had turned needle-sharp by nightfall, coming in sheets that blurred the small border town into a haze of grey light and reflection. The rail lines cutting through the outskirts looked deserted, old cargo cars stranded like forgotten skeletons. Elias reached the Sextua 12 signal hut first. The building was a relic of the Cold War. Brick walls tagged with graffiti, its windows blacked out by decades of grime. He checked his watch, 22:59, right on time. A faint buzz came from the doorway, followed by a single beam of white light sweeping across the yard. Ward? A voice called, low but steady, faintly British. Elias didn't move. You Lysander? The beam clicked off. Footsteps approached. A man in a rain-soaked parka stepped from the shadows, carrying a small data pack and a worn micro-recorder. Late 30s, tired eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. Anja emerged from the opposite side of the rail line, gun low but visible. Show your face. Kai lifted his head slightly, calm even with the weapon aimed his way. You can shoot me, but then you'll have to find another reporter who doesn't work for the people chasing you. Elias lowered his gun a fraction. We're short on options. That much I guessed, Kai said, stepping into the hut. The boards lit up after your message. Half of Europe's networks went into lockdown. He set the recorder on an overturned crate and looked at them both. You were right about one thing. This Meridian isn't fiction. I traced packet headers to multiple corporate vendors, Aegis, Helix Data, and at least 2 defense consultancies inside NATO supply chains. Anja glanced at Elias. So it's bigger than we thought. Global, Kai said. Behavior prediction, sentiment manipulation, market steering, same algorithm, different masks. You two just peeled away the polite facade. Elias studied him. And what do you want from us? Kai smiled weakly. Truth, obviously. But let's be honest, I also want to live long enough to print it. Anja pulled the encrypted key from her coat pocket and slid it across the crate. This is the full data chain from the Riga node. If you can decrypt it, you can prove Meridian was used on civilian populations. Kai hesitated before taking it. Once I have this, every intelligence agency in the Northern Hemisphere starts hunting me instead of you. Elias said nothing for a moment, then answered softly, Welcome to our world. A distant rumble of engines drifted through the night air. Kai checked his wrist tracker and froze. You didn't bring anyone else. Elias's expression darkened. We didn't. Then someone piggybacked your signal. He said. They're triangulating this spot. Anja glanced through the narrow window slit. 4 sets of lights cutting through the mist, engines muted, moving fast. "Not police," she said. "Aegis." Kai pocketed the data stick. "Then we move now. My car's 2 blocks north across the freight yard." Elias motioned toward the shadows. "Go!" They slipped out into the downpour just as the black SUVs halted near the hut. Figures spilled out, weapons drawn, heat-seeking optics flicking to life. Kai ducked low, breath ragged. "Do they ever stop?" No, Elias answered. "They only upgrade." The 3 of them disappeared between the silent freight cars as rain hammered the steel. Behind them, the signal hut went up in a controlled whoosh of flame, Aegis's way of erasing evidence and witnesses all at once. Chapter 24, The Freight Yard. Rain turned the freight yard into a labyrinth of reflections. Steel puddles, sodium lights flickering like dying stars. Elias, Anya, and Kai sprinted between rows of idle train cars, their breath ragged clouds in the cold air. "North Gate," Kai hissed. "There's a service tunnel beneath the customs depot." Elias checked the rear, black silhouettes moving in rhythm, rifles low, fanning through thermal goggles. "Aegis Strike Team." Anja looked up, caught the faint shimmer of a drone between the cranes. "They've got eyes above." "Then we go under," Elias said. Gunfire cracked, short bursts snapping between containers. Kai stumbled, ducking behind a stack of cargo pallets. "Friendly reminder, I'm a journalist, not field ops." "Tonight you're both," Elias muttered, yanking him to his feet. A bullet hit a fuel canister above them. Vapor hissed into the air, mixing with the rain. Elias grabbed Anya's arm. "Light it." She struck the flare and tossed it toward the leaking fuel. The explosion rolled through the yard, a wave of orange heat that turned the night into daylight. Containers toppled, fire alarms screamed. In the chaos, they slipped through a maintenance hatch, sliding down a slick ladder into the drainage tunnel below. Elias landed first, knee-deep in cold runoff. He listened, the thud of boots above, shouts muffled by smoke. Kai dropped beside him, clutching the data stick like a relic. "I'd say that went poorly." Anja smiled faintly through exhaustion. "You made it out alive. That's good journalism." Elias motioned forward. "Move." The tunnel feeds into the river. If we make it past the lock, we can grab the north road to Estonia. Behind them, echoes of machinery shifted, Aegis lowering sensor drones into the tunnels. "Go, go!" Elias pushed Kai ahead. They ran until the roar of water drowned everything else. When they finally reached open air, the river looked like molten glass under the flames still reflecting from the yard. They slid into the current, invisible against the burning skyline. As they drifted north, Kai muttered, "You realize if I decrypt this, governments collapse." Elias met his eyes in the dark. "Then decrypt fast, before someone decides collapsing you is easier." Chapter 25. The Counterstroke. Brussels, Temporary Liaison Office, pre-dawn. Sarah Klein hadn't slept in 48 hours. The coffee on her desk had gone cold hours ago. The city beyond the window looked sterile in the moonlight. A secure call flashed on her screen. "Incoming. Eleanor Hawke, MI6. Klein pressed connect. "Tell me you're not calling to lecture me." Hawke's voice came smooth, almost amused. "Flattery first thing in the morning. You must be desperate." "I've got Aegis cutting into NATO infrastructure," Klein said sharply. "They've turned Meridian into privatized cyber sovereignty. I need leverage before Reeve buries me and half the alliance with me." Hawke sniffed. "Leverage costs favors, dear. But I might have something. Aegis's Tallinn hub just activated reserve charter protocols. Legally, they're now outside NATO oversight. That gives them full liability autonomy." "In English?" Klein demanded. "They've seceded from the rules. If something catastrophic happens on their watch, say a data cascade exposing global manipulation, jurisdiction dies in chaos." Klein's eyes narrowed. "Meaning if Meridian detonates publicly, Reeve loses investors faster than I lose clearance." "Exactly," Hawke said. And I happen to know a few digital anarchists who'd love to fast-forward that detonation. Klein leaned back. You're offering me a leak of my own leak? Politely, yes. You light the fuse, I watch Reeve burn. Call it a transatlantic favor. After a pause, Klein said quietly, done. Hawk smirked. Lovely. Do keep me updated if the world ends. The call disconnected. Klein stood, staring toward the faint amber glow on the eastern horizon. Somewhere out there, she knew Elias Ward was still alive, and by sunrise, his leak might finally bring down the entire House of Mirrors. Chapter 26, The Upload Plan. Northern Estonia. Abandoned radar outpost. The old radar station sat on a cliff overlooking the Gulf, concrete cracked and flaking under salt winds. From here, the sea stretched endless, black water merging with the grey sky. It was the final quiet place left between governments. Elias, Anya, and Kai huddled inside the operations room, its peeling walls still humming faintly from power rerouted through portable generators. Kai slid the data stick into his terminal. Lines of Meridian code shimmered across the screens, half corrupted, half miracle. This is it, wait, he murmured. If we upload through encrypted mirror sites, it'll scatter the data across public academic servers before they can lock it down. Elias glanced toward the doorway. Aegis will trace the emission within seconds. Once we hit send, every predator in Europe wakes up. Anja, crouched by the window with her rifle, said quietly, then we make the seconds count. Kai breathed out slowly. Ward, if I do this, everything we know about digital privacy, democracy, even journalism, collapses. Elias stared at the screens. They already collapsed the day Meridian was built. You're just showing the world the rubble. He stepped closer, laid a hand on Kai's shoulder. Do it. Kai nodded and hit the key. The monitors pulsed, then bled streaks of code into the network, a silent storm of truth riding through thousands of routers, mirror sites, and cloud backups. Seeding, Kai said. 1%, 3, 10. Anja's hand tightened on her rifle. They're coming. Headlights appeared along the distant access road. Aegis tactical convoy in formation. The soft rhythm of rotors cut through the mist, drones hovering like vultures. Elias took a deep breath. Hold the line 20 minutes. That's all we need. Outside, wind tore over the cliff, carrying the first echoes of engines. Inside, the data poured into the world. Kai smiled faintly through the fear. Feels strange, doesn't it? Knowing the truth won't save us, but maybe it'll save someone. Elias watched the progress bar climb to 64%. It's enough. Chapter 27, The Countermeasure. Tallinn, Aegis Command Center. Adam Reeve stood motionless before the data wall. Red alarms crawled across the global map, hundreds of nodes blooming open like a contagion. Propagation confirmed, his analyst said. Meridian shellcode dispersing through academic and government networks. Origin, northern coast. Reeve's jaw tightened. Ward again. They're uploading from the cliff station. He turned to his communications officer. Get me emergency access to NATO's orbital comm grid. The man hesitated. That's restricted clearance. Do it, Reeve snapped. Moments later, the room's lights dimmed. Reeve activated the command console, input a string of manual overrides under an old NATO encryption key. A secondary operator paled. That code's buried, classified terminus protocol. Sir, that authorizes electromagnetic network burn. Reeve's tone was almost serene. Exactly. If I can't own the truth, no one will. He typed the final command and hit execute. Across the network, power grids flickered. Satellites reoriented. A pulse of coded interference streaked across Europe, designed to fry every host carrying Meridian's signature. A blast of static erupted from the speakers. Propagation halted at 77%, an operator said, voice trembling. Reeve exhaled. Close enough. But another technician pointed to her screen, horrified. Sir, secondary relay detected. Someone's duplicating the files outside the network. Cellular mesh, peer-to-peer. Reeve stared. That's impossible. Who has that kind of access? From the audio feed, a calm female voice spilled through, the unmistakable accent of Sarah Klein. Nice fireworks, Adam. But you just burned your own servers. Have a lovely bankruptcy. Reeve spun toward the window just as a dozen floodlights lit the courtyard below, EU security vehicles swarming the Aegis campus. He smiled faintly despite himself. Well played, Sarah. Then he turned to his staff and said quietly, prepare evacuation. This board will survive somewhere else. Chapter 28. The Fall of Aegis. Tallinn, Aegis Command Center. Sparks showered from the main console as emergency lighting flickered crimson. One entire wall of screens went dead. The rest streamed nonsense. Unsynchronized bursts of waveforms, indecipherable analog pulses echoing across the continent. Adam Reeve stood absolutely still. Trace it, he ordered. His voice was calm, deliberate, but the edges of panic showed in the tremor of his hand. An analyst answered tersely. We can't. The transmission bypassed our spectrum suppressors. Every pre-digital receiver in Eurasia is carrying fragments, 70S radios, shortwave repeaters, even car stereos. Reeve exhaled slowly through his nose. So they went prehistoric. His deputy, soaked from the storm that had drenched the rooftop array, handed him a tablet displaying real-time social chatter feeds. MERIDIAN A and Truth already trended globally. The pulse converted to code by hobbyists, fragments decoded by open-source cryptographers. Reeve scrolled silently down the page. Proof NATO used population-shaping AI. And of evidence of corporate manipulation in elections. Meridian leak. Can government still claim moral authority? He hurled the tablet against the wall. Glass shattered. Lock down external comms, he barked. Erase the financial chain tying us to the project. If they find ledger logs... Too late. Another operator looked up, pale. Sir, our ledgers just went public. Someone inside released our blockchain trail. Taxes, clients, black fund transfers. Reeve's expression froze. Klein. Outside, rotors thundered. EU security assault teams in exosuits dropped onto the helipad amid driving sleet. Reeve smoothed his coat, eerily composed now. Gentlemen, if this is the end, we face it like shareholders. He stepped to the center of the room, staring at the burning monitors. Meridian was never about control, he said softly. It was about inevitability. Information always seeks owners. Today it just found everyone. The door blew inward. Armed officers flooded the chamber, weapons raised. Adam Reeve, barked the lead agent. You're under arrest for crimes against the European Security Charter. Reeve smiled faintly. That's adorable. I invented half that charter. They shackled him anyway. Behind him, the servers continued to melt down, lights fading one by one until Aegis Defense, the invisible empire, went dark. Chapter 29. The Survivor's Gambit. Brussels, NATO, Security Council chambers. By dawn, the fog over the city had thickened into a pale, bitter haze. Inside the war room, delegates argued over the wreckage of their digital world. Across the floor, live news screens blared unfiltered analyses of the Meridian leak. Markets crashed, protests ignited, allies exchanged accusations. Sarah Klein walked in without a word, trenchcoat still damp from the rain. Every conversation stopped. One councillor stood. Director Klein, this scandal. She cut him off. Is controlled. Aegis takes full accountability. NATO disavows all knowledge. The alliance remains intact. Another delegate scowled. You're sacrificing a corporation to save your seat. She smiled faintly. No, gentlemen. I'm sacrificing greed to save governance. Her aide handed her a tablet displaying live footage of Reeve being escorted through Tallinn airport in handcuffs. Ensure the press sees this first, Klein ordered. Headline reads, Rogue Contractor Responsible for Global Breach. No mention of Meridian beyond that word. The public gets its villain, the system gets another sunrise. When the room finally emptied, Hawk appeared at the far doorway, umbrella dripping on the marble. Quite the performance, she said. Klein faced her, expression unreadable. The world's fragile enough without the whole truth. Hawk chuckled softly. And who decides when enough is enough? Klein didn't answer. She looked toward the television feed, Reeve boarding a prisoner transport, eyes cold, unbroken. Above the crawl of endless headlines, one anchor's voice summarized it all. The Meridian leaks have permanently altered the balance of trust between governments, corporations, and the public sphere. Klein muted the screen. The balance was an illusion. Now it's just visible. As Hawk turned to leave, Klein whispered to herself, barely audible. Ward, wherever you are, keep running. You've done what none of us dared. Outside, thunder rolled again over Brussels, like the echo of a new world struggling to be born. Chapter 30, 1 year later. Iceland, private research colony, March 2027. The sea there was black glass, rimmed with drifting ice and the faint shimmer of the aurora. The horizon felt infinite, quiet, the kind of silence only survivors find. Elias Ward lived a half-life among coders and researchers who asked no names, only skill sets. He went by Eli Warren, now fixing generators and configuring satellite links that could never touch Earth's main networks again. Anja appeared sometimes, same Parker, same calm that came from enduring too much. She handled outreach between the scattered enclaves, forming a new underground internet, the line, they called it. Secure, human-coded, open only by mutual trust. Kai had stayed behind in Europe. His articles, released under 30 aliases, had become digital samizdat, unsourced, untraceable pieces tying governments and companies together through meridians, exposed architecture. No one could prove where the information came from, but the world recognized his words as real. Elias watched one of the northern lights curve over the sky, the color shifting from green to copper. You think it mattered? He asked quietly. Anja didn't answer right away. She leaned on the railing, wind cutting through her hair. People stopped pretending they weren't being watched, she said. That's something. He half smiled. And Reeve, Klein? Reeve's trial never started. He disappeared en route to Brussels, probably bought his own freedom. Klein's still in her seat. The old world doesn't die, it just changes masks. Elias looked back toward the sea. Maybe, but Meridian's gone. The code scattered beyond control. No one can own it again. She shook her head. You don't scatter thinking. You plant it. He met her eyes, understanding. So that's what we are. The gardeners. Anja smiled slowly. Don't get poetic, Eli Warren. The northern lights flared brighter, green lightning across the void. In that silence, he thought of Thomas, of Kai's laughter echoing through the static, and of every lie burned away when truth finally refused to hide. Somewhere below, in the colony's comms room, an old analog receiver crackled faintly with a sound that was not quite static, a rhythmic pulse repeating forever on loop, Meridian's ghost still whispering across forgotten frequencies. Epilogue, the myth of Meridian. They called it the leak that changed language. A year later, people everywhere spoke about truth differently. The word had lost its capital letter. News agencies no longer used verified. Every fact came with an asterisk, every source a question mark. Yet for the first time, citizens chose to read those asterisks rather than ignore them. Governments outlawed AI decision engines. Corporations swore transparency they couldn't define. Activists built the line, a new web that existed between systems, anonymous but human-run. Some said Elias Ward and Anja Petrescu still lived, moving from place to place, keeping the new networks honest. Others swore they'd died on that Estonian cliff and that the pulse roaming the shortwave bands was their echo. A digital haunting, reminding the world what happens when secrets grow too big to hide. Meridian itself became a myth, like Cold War spy stories or the first nuclear launch, the moment humanity crossed another invisible line. Some feared it. Some worshipped it. All remembered it. Because the world learned too late that control isn't held by the ones who build truth. It's held by the ones who question it. And somewhere, beneath auroras and ocean winds, an old transmitter clicked alive again, whispering softly into the static. Meridian Online.